Hey guys, Rob Skiba here. Sorry it's been a while since I put a video up. I've been actually out location scouting and writing for my Seed series, the television series that I've been developing. Again, if you guys want to stay up to date on that, be sure to sign up for my email list. This is a list that's only for me. I'm not going to be marketing this to anybody. I'm not going to be selling your names or email addresses to anybody. It's just for me, and it's just for you if you want to stay informed on that project. But that's what's been keeping me very busy, and I really did intend to get number one of the top 10 reasons why we know there's a globe debunking video done before the end of 2017. I really tried to, started working on it, and then things just got in the way and I couldn't get it done. And since then, like I said, I've been really busy working on Seed and trying to meet some other deadlines that I have to take care of. So that's why that video hasn't come out. But you know what? If you're really jonesing and you're having withdrawals and you need to see part one, there's another YouTuber out there who has actually solved that problem. And so until I get my version of it done, I recommend you guys check out the YouTube channel Seventh Day Truth Seeker. And they put up a video debunking top 10 reasons why we know the earth is round, Rob Skiba. They took all of the ones I've done so far and compiled them together into one video. It's like 6 hours long. And at the very end of it, they actually went ahead and took it upon themselves to take footage from other videos that I've done regarding photographic evidence, quote unquote, of the Earth and put it into this video to complete the series. And I have to say, they actually used a fair amount of the stuff that I had already put down to use in the video that I was going to make. Of course, there's a lot more that I want to add to it besides just that, but they put a decent amount in there. So if you really want to see the conclusion of that series now, while you're waiting for me to get that one done, if you are in fact waiting for me to get that one done, you can go to Seventh Day Truth Seeker, look up the video debunking top 10 reasons, and skip ahead all the way down to 5 hours, 23 minutes, and about 57 seconds. That's where the number one portion of it comes in. And I have to say, I really appreciate this YouTuber. This person has integrity. All my content's out there for free. You can mirror it if you want to, no problem. Download it, whatever. But every time this person does it, first of all, they actually send me money through PayPal. I've never solicited, I've never asked for that, but this person figures, if I'm going to use this content, I should probably send him something. So he sends me some money through PayPal whenever he mirrors one of my videos. And he also in the description says, hey, be sure to subscribe to Rob Skiba's channel. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's integrity. That's awesome. That's a good YouTuber right there. Unlike others who will take my name, take my face, take my content, and try to use it for their own personal gain. That's totally not cool. So, again, this is my official YouTube channel. I have one other one, and it is my Captain Ming YouTube channel, which was my original one. Captain Ming's my high school nickname. And so these are my only two official channels. Anything else that you see out there is a counterfeit. Unsub now and stop paying any attention to them. All right, enough of that. So ABC Nightline finally ran their video that they made covering the Flat Earth International Conference that was held back in November. And I have to say this, kudos to ABC. They actually gave a very good and I would consider fair representation of the event and of the people there and what we believe. Unlike so many other mainstream media outlets that were covering the event that did everything they could to make us look stupid, take the worst possible clips of whatever we said, find the people that are dressed the strangest or look the weirdest or what have you, use them, put goofy music in the background, did everything they can just to make the whole thing look ridiculous. ABC, top notch, they, I think, really did a good job of giving a fair representation. But I'm going to play the video that they put out and just pause it a few times and make some commentary as we go along. If you want to see it uncut, of course, you could go to the ABC YouTube channel and just look it up and watch it it's like 7 or 8 minutes long. Watch it for yourself. But I'm going to play it and just give a little bit of commentary on a few things as we go along. And then at the end of it, I'm going to play the raw interview that they did with me, because they interviewed me for almost an hour. And of course, they only used about a minute worth of it in the piece that they put out, because it was a short video and they had a lot of other people in there too. So what I decided to do is take the portions that they did use and insert those into the raw video here, so you can see where they plucked the words that I used from. And I have to say I'm really impressed with the lavalier microphone that they had on me, because they had me in a very noisy, well, most of us, they interviewed us in a very noisy lobby, and but that was a very directional microphone, and it sounds pretty good on their video. The raw video that you're going to see was recorded by Sheila with her iPhone, and my cheap camcorder was there too, right next to the cameras that the ABC was using. So, of course, with that footage, all you're going to hear is the, kind of tin canny, noisy audio that you get when you record with a cell phone or camcorder in an environment like that. So it is kind of hard to hear. I apologize for that, but that's what it was. And that was my requirement for being interviewed. I was like, okay, I'll let you interview me, but I'm going to record you interviewing me, so I make sure that you fairly represent what I say. And they were cool with that. So again, kudos to ABC, and here is the coverage they put out on Nightline.
We'll start with some basic questions. The sky is
in a world where it feels like nothing is as it seems.
blue.
It's blue, of course. Oh, the sky's blue.
The sky's blue.
1 + 1 is
2.
2. 2.
2. There's at least one truth we thought was indisputable.
Okay, right off the bat, two things that caught my attention. First of all, when they're asking the very basic questions, 1 + 1 and what color is the sky and whatnot, take note of the time-lapse photography that they showed of the clouds moving in the blue sky. Hold that thought. We'll come back to it. Then they come to this picture right here. One thing we thought we know to be true, the Earth's a globe, right? And they show the 3D model, and that's exactly what this is, a 3D model of the Earth that is probably used more than any other model of the Earth. For instance, this is from another video that I did where I was telling somebody about how this same model was used in Star Trek, in the original Star Trek series when they redid the special effects. They used the exact same Earth that we've seen from NASA.
Wow.
And there's one specific Earth that I've referred to. It's the one that got my attention. It's the one that has a cloud formation. It has like a backward C looking shape and like a tail on it with like a little thing on the bottom of the sea. That image of the Earth has showed up in so many movies and so many TV shows and so many special effects of the Earth that, I mean, it's like their favorite one. And it showed up in that episode of Star Trek, and then another one where the Enterprise got sent backwards in time, and they ended up back in regular Earth in the 1960s, and a jet fighter pilot is scrambled because the Enterprise ended up in low Earth orbit, and the United States sent up a fighter jet to go investigate, and the Enterprise ended up beaming that pilot aboard. Anyway, it was the same Earth, the same exact Earth with that exact same special effect. So you see this little backward C that I have circled there. That is a telltale sign that you're looking at the same model. And this is a model that was created. It's also the 2002 blue marble that was created and admitted to be Photoshop.
And this is just the latest in NASA's Earth from Space album, which may be one of the most mind-expanding collections of images in human history. In 1972, we saw our home in a new way. Apollo 17 astronauts snapped this picture. Then in 2002, Blue Marble 2.0, NASA's Rob Skiba made this. And it had wide appeal too. For example, it ended up as the default background on the iPhone.
I didn't even know until I bought an iPhone and turned it on and kind of did a little happy dance.
Simmons' job is...
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
That's what this is, a composite of data sets from several different instruments translated into a picture.
To us, the really cool thing was the data set. Up until that point, there was no realistic color map of the globe anywhere.
So the land layer here comes from
the Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectroradiometer aboard Terra.
And the tricky part here was the weather.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They stashed the clouds for later, went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it was a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Then
there was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
Cause there ain't no photographs, but somebody tell me why. They're all just Photoshop cartoons, they're all just CGI. No photographic proof of a globe, no none at all. Why the hell can't no one take a photo of this ball? There ain't no photographs, but somebody tell me why. They're all just Photoshop cartoons, they're all just CGI. No photographic proof of a globe, no none at all. Why the hell can't no one take a photo of this ball?
All right, let's continue.
And the Earth is...
Flat.
Flat.
The Earth is flat.
My reality, my senses tell me that the Earth is flat and stationary.
Or so I thought. But for the people attending the first Flat Earth International Conference here in Cary, North Carolina, their Earth indisputably is not round.
Everybody here can agree on absolutely one thing, which is it is not a globe.
For centuries, a flat Earth was accepted as certainty until science and sailboats said otherwise.
Science and sailboats. Well, yet to be fair, back in the day when people looked out and they saw ships disappearing hull first, they said, well, it looks like it's going over a curve. All I can say is regarding science being observable, testable, repeatable, go out and buy yourself the Nikon Coolpix P900 and start watching ships go out to sea. I've done plenty of videos on this, and so have many others. And so, yeah. I have seen with my own observations using the Nikon Coolpix P900 that there's what appears to be the hard line of the horizon on water, and then there's a miraged horizon beyond that you can actually watch boats go right out into. And you've seen that online before with the Red Boat, for instance, that video done by Lori Frary. And I also did a similar video where I went to Florida and I was visiting my family. We went out to the beach, and it was a fairly clear night, although it looks a little bit hazy in this video here. And I was watching ships go out to sea, and these ships right here that you see on the screen started out right beside me, and I watched them leave the dock and go all the way out to where you see them right here. And I just kept the camera on them and just followed them out there. You'll see the hard line right here of the water, and that's about 2 to 3 miles out, I'm guessing. But if you just keep watching, they'll go beyond that line. You'll see them going out beyond the hard line right there. And here's a shot where they've gone way beyond that line. They're out at between 4 and 5 miles right now. And looking at the curvature chart, at the water level, you should be missing 10 feet of the ship. And my camera was just about 2 to 3 feet at the most above water level, and I don't see anything missing there. So I believe all that's happening right there is just like when you look out at cars driving on the highway and it look like there's a big puddle up ahead, but it's not. It's just miraging on the ground, making it look like water. And so in this case, out to sea, it blends in with the sky, and it gives the appearance of losing the horizon, but you haven't. The ships will just keep going out on that water. It's not a mirage, it's not looming, it's not anything. It's just ships going straight out to sea on a flat, level surface.
This started out as an empty horizon. Yeah, I mean, like, totally empty. There wasn't anything on it when we started, and that was 18 minutes ago.
Go ahead and see how science and sailboats prove we're not on a globe. I dare you.
One of the rules of power is you never admit that there's someone bigger than yourself.
But it wasn't until 2015 when this guy, Mark Sargent, posted his flat earth clues.
Part of a series of clues that can help you get your head around both the design of the flat earth system we live in.
You're kind of the father of this movement.
Boy,
how would you?
Don't do that.
You're the one who sort of started it all.
I did not invent flat earth. All I did was walk up to a door, point at it, say, you know what? I think there's some really interesting things on the other side of this, and check it out for yourself. If flat earth is a university, FEA, then I would be the freshman recruiter.
Great answer. I would be the freshman recruiter. I have heard Mark on a number of shows and being interviewed say that, look, he's not the originator of this. There were plenty of forerunners. You know some of the names, but there have been plenty of people that were out there before Mark, and he would readily admit that he was listening to and watching that influenced him. Mark's genius was in taking the information that was out there and distilling it down to 10, 12, 15 minute, 20 minute sound bites and shareable videos that went viral. That was his brilliance, and that's why so many people found Flat Earth as a result of Mark. And so people are out there giving this guy a hard time. You know what? I like him. I don't know him real well, but we've had a number of conversations on the phone. We've been on each other's radio shows. And, he seems like a sincere guy that who is always the first to promote everybody else. You got a meetup? Great. He's going to be promoting it for you. You got some research out there? He'll get you on the show and promote your channel. He is the exact opposite of what he's being accused of, which among probably many things, like a lot of us, he is often called a shill. So let's look up the definition of shill. Dictionary.com defines a shill as a person who poses as a customer in order to decoy others into participating as at a gambling house, auction, confidence game, etc. Or 2, a person who publicizes or praises something or someone for reasons of self-interest, personal profit, or friendship or loyalty. And that's not what Mark is doing. In fact, I would tell you, he's always pointing, hey, there's the door. Go through it. Check it out. There's lots of stuff there. Listen to this guy. Watch that guy's stuff. I mean, he's always pointing to other people, promoting other people. Sure, he's got his own content out there too. We all do. But I don't see any evidence that he's doing this for his own personal profit or self-interest. In fact, he seems to be the least self-interested person out there in the Flat Earth community. Some of these other guys are all about themselves, and they call everybody else, except for the guy in the mirror, a shill. In fact, I am of the opinion that the real shills are the ones out there calling everybody else a shill. They're not contributing anything to the research. In fact, they are terrible at doing research. They see one little thing, they spin it off into a million directions, and they accuse people like Mark of this, that, and the other thing. They accuse me of this, that, and the other thing. They do no real research to validate any of the things they're saying. They're just promoting their own opinion, trying to make other people look bad so that they can look good. That's the bottom line. So, I like Mark. Do I agree with everything he says? Does he represent everything I believe? No, but he's entitled to his opinion. Just like I'm sure I say things and I believe things that he doesn't believe. And you do too. We are all entitled to our opinion. Now, some people get upset that he's sort of become the voice for Flat Earth because he's on a lot of media outlet channels doing interviews. Well, you know what? I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. If you disagree with him, get yourself out there in the limelight. Make the phone calls. Network with people. Send out the press releases. Then you can get in front of the camera too. You know, I mean, the guy works it. I mean, what can I say? I mean, he makes himself available. He puts his phone number, his email out there for anybody to contact him. And what do you know? The media, who doesn't have a whole lot of time and frankly doesn't do a whole lot of research, he made it easy for them. They see his video, they see a phone number, they see an email address, boom, they contact him. And next thing you know, he's on their show. I mean, it's really that simple. Again, I like Mark. You can call me a shill if you want to, but I've seen the stuff that's out there coming against him, and there are plenty of logical, reasonable explanations that differ from what these attackers are putting out on him, on me, and on a number of other people. I look at the things that people accuse Mark of, and I see how some of these same people accuse me of things that I know are absolutely not true. They spin off things, supposedly affiliations and things that I have, which are not true. Like I said, I like all these guys. I have no problem with it. I hate seeing all this. And what happened for me is I was being passed, those videos were being passed to me. About the same time, somebody sent me a video of somebody that did a hit piece on me. And I watched this video, and it's just the problem with the so-called truther community is when there are real legitimate conspiracies. Absolutely. But not everything. I mean, everything. Not everything is a conspiracy, and so all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't agree with this guy or whatever. So let me go find out if he's really an Illuminati shill and dig up everything I possibly can to prove my point.
All right, guys. So I'm going to expose Rob Skiba real quick. I'm getting pretty tired of seeing this guy.
And this person had taken clips from, there was a testimonial video back in 2003. My home church in Massachusetts, a good fundamental Baptist church, was doing the purpose-driven life, as was just about every evangelical church in the country in 2003. Before Rick Warren, he may have always been kind of off his rocker, but
sure.
It wasn't until later on, after his stuff became extremely successful, that he became like this highly suspicious character, at least for most of us anyway. And back then, none of us were suspecting anything. The book was good. The book, actually, I was reading that book right in the middle of a very painful divorce, and there was a lot of things in that book that actually helped me. And so in my video, I make reference to that book as part of my testimony that helped me through, because it is. But all of a sudden now I'm associated with Rick Warren.
Here he showed you a book, The Purpose-Driven Life, written by Rick Warren. This guy right here shaking the hand of the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. So there's another big clue that this guy's a deceiver.
And there's a piece in this video that shows me where I'm talking about dreaming big and whatnot. And there's a picture that shows me standing next to George Lucas.
So we're gonna look at a few clues. We're gonna hear him from his own mouth, tell you his background, his sketchy background. And here's him and George Lucas on location when he's young. So obviously he had some connections from very early on.
The problem is the actual photograph that's there is Spielberg standing next to Lucas. I just photoshopped my face into it, but these people don't take any time to look into anything. I've got a page on my Facebook. If people go to my Facebook page, click on my photo albums and look for the one that says Dream Board, it shows me with a whole bunch of Hollywood celebrities. But I'm not really in any of those pictures. All of those pictures are 100% Photoshop. But I mean, this is the problem. People don't really take the time to do any research. They jump to conclusions. They make these videos. And like you said, and I'm just as guilty, and I just want to give a shout out to you for the fact that you are a peacemaker and all about relationships, because I was ready to do a counter hit piece on a few individuals that I perceived to have been coming against me. And, you happen to call me right when I was stewing on it. Like, I'm literally like, I'm gonna, and you call me up and you're like, whoa, dude. No, you need to call him. You need to talk to him. And I did. I ended up, we ended up having a 3-hour long, and we did it face to face on a private Google Hangout. It wasn't public or published or anything like that, but it was a private Google Hangout. So I could look in his eyes. He could look into my eyes. We could talk face to face. Now, he still continued to do videos after that, but
you know what? We've had the face-to-face. We're going to meet each other again at the conference, and I am anticipating it being a good meeting.
Yep.
But, I mean, to your credit, you're like, dude, no, you need to call. And, yeah, I think there needs to be a lot more of that, especially, good grief. I mean, right now, the truther community, and pick a subject, not just flat Earth, pick a subject. It's fracturing like crazy. There's so much division, and it's like, well, it wouldn't be that way if people actually took the time, like you said, to reach out, contact somebody, talk to them face to face, get the scoop. Don't just, do a clickbait video, hit piece.
Yeah, and even in future events, if there's like a time at these conferences where it's like you just want to get your grievances out, you want to get your questions in a respectful way. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this is over time, this will be an opportunity to confront someone. If you're looking at just, you want to just look them in the eyes, you want to get to know them. I know pretty much everyone there deep down, and they would take the opportunity, they would take the time to do this if it meant that, someone was really, upset or they're worried or they're, if this was genuine, they will take the time. Like, that's the thing that people don't understand is people that have met, let's just say Mark and Patricia, they're blown away at how much time they just spend with them. Wow.
Yeah.
They didn't need to spend that much time. They just spent time. They were just nice, And that's what there's a lot of people that are skeptical that are going to come to this event. And then all of a sudden, Mark's just going to sit down, talk to them, and they're like, well, he was awesome. He was nice, So, I mean, it's one thing if you have your suspicions, but at least he's nice. He's not playing this game, And if he was controlling the information, he definitely is not going to promote your videos. But the fact of the matter is he'll promote anyone. So, these are not ideal shills. I mean, the joke they all say is like, look, I mean, the government really, if they're going to use, two people, why would they use Mark and Patricia as their two main operatives, But again, getting out of all of that, I'm just saying that when you get to know people, it becomes silly. And again, we all fall into this trap. I did this myself as well, early on when I'm looking around, I'm suspicious of everything, right? We need to at least, get to know someone on a personal level, whether it's on the phone or hopefully in person, because you can address things, you can just see things, and just things become a lot more real. So anyone listening that's coming to the conference that's even on the fence about anyone, well, I think you're going to change afterwards. I mean, not only are you going to change, you're going to have a great time. You're going to want to keep coming out because it's going to be a great time. It's going to be awesome. Everyone's there because they see the big picture. No one's better than anyone there. It's all about community. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be safe. It's going to be family friendly. It's going to be done professional. And over time, it's really going to start maturing the community because I agree with you. There's a lot of, infighting and all this stuff's going on. But again, there's never really been anything like this before. So once this starts happening, as time moves forward, it will start maturing to a point where people will just become a little bit more hospitable. They'll become more real. They'll become more genuine. They'll become more transparent. And again, not to mention all the amazing friendships and the bonds and the networking that will happen and the meetups that will happen afterwards. That's already starting to happen. So like I said, it's going to go to the next level after this conference. It's not what happens at the conference. It's what's going to happen afterwards. And I'm so hopeful and excited for, the future.
So, seeing how ridiculous the claims they make against me are, they haven't given me any reason to believe that the things that they're putting out about him are any more truer than the things they're putting out against me. So, anyway, good job, Mark. Good answer. Moving on.
People have traveled from around, actually, Mark would say, across the flat world to attend.
The first rule of Flat Club is you don't talk about Flat Club.
Until now.
I have a poem about that. It's right here.
Amy Nicholson wrote a book of poetry about her flat earth journey.
A few months flat and 7 months to rally.
Kim Gurley came to the conference from Houston.
I haven't really come out all the way yet. I'm still a little in the closet.
The North Pole's in the middle.
Lainey Innevale came from even farther.
I mixed with quite a lot of flat earthers in New Zealand.
You know flat earthers, I guarantee it. But you don't know who they are because they're afraid of talking about it.
1, 2, 3. We're not crazy!
Okay. Yeah. Immediately after we did that, I'm standing right next to David Weiss there. He said, well, but that's what a crazy person would say. A crazy person would say, I'm not crazy. And, of course, all the media was surrounding us there, and I knew at that moment I'm going, yep, that's the clip they're going to use. They're definitely going to use that one. I know Rick meant it as a joke, but Anyway, there you go.
Like many modern movements, this one has grown in large part out of the internet, with rappers like Odd TV evangelizing to hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
No more living on a cartoon ball.
And YouTube channels like
Globebusters
encouraging skepticism about what you've been taught. For the serious students here at the conference,
And this has got to a point now where it's becoming real.
it all comes down to proof.
When it comes to science, there's things you can test right now, right? Fire burns, water's wet, drop something, falls to the ground, that appears to be gravity. Those are things you can test, right?
But the curving horizon, the sloping sea level, the spin of the Earth, unless you can see these phenomena with your own eyes, they may not be true.
Well, the thing is, you can see these things with your own eyes. There are things that you can test for yourself to prove that we are not spinning. There have been major scientific tests that have been done to prove that. I'm not going to play it here, but if you want to look more into that, see my debunking the top 10 reasons video that I did on the Coriolis effect and how this place is not spinning. And there are plenty of videos that I've done, as well as many others, showing there is no curving horizon left to right, or ships going over the curve, front to back, forward, backwards, or whatever. And of course, we've got another CG model of the Earth with cheesy cloud animations.
A lot of people are going, this is
crazy, right? But think about this. For the last 20, 25 generations, this is what we've told people.
Unlike what we've been told in school, some flat earthers imagine the Earth looks like a snow globe, round but not sphere. The North Pole is at the center of most flat Earth maps, with the ice of Antarctica holding everything in.
So are you certain this is what the Earth looks like?
Pretty sure. Almost. I mean, there are some details to be worked out, sure, but the basic concept is sound. Absolutely sound. And one thing, again, we absolutely know for a fact, this ain't it.
So those iconic blue marble images seen from space, flat earthers denounce them as fakes.
You start seeing words like composite or animation, or something that tells you this is not an actual photograph of the Earth.
And that's the real point of the video that I still need to get done, which is the so-called number one proof why we know the Earth's a globe, being photographic evidence. And oddly enough, the thing that should be the slam dunk proof is actually one of the most damning. In fact, as soon as you start looking into the photographic evidence to try to debunk flat Earth, you're going to end up becoming a flat Earth believer, because that's all it takes is looking into the fraudulent pictures, and there are lots of them, pictures and video, of the Earth that simply are not true.
At first, I had the thought that everybody else has. We've all seen the pictures. But those pictures come from NASA, the military, and the government. But I'm going to look into it anyway. So as I start looking into those pictures and realizing they are either questionable at best, when you see the Apollo 11 footage of the astronauts faking the globular shape of the Earth through a round window in their spacecraft, that gives you a real big red flag going, what's up with that, and then you don't really get a picture of the Earth until the Apollo 17 famous one that we've all seen. And then Matt Boylan comes out and he's like, that's a painting. And so, I'm looking at it, I'm an artist, I'm a painter, not quite as good as some of these guys like Matt Boylan is. I mean, he's very photorealistic with his artwork. But I'm questioning it now, and then you look at all the other blue marbles that they put out, and they are, if you read the fine print, they're telling you these are composite images. This is artwork. This is, and when you look into the composite images, they're not even good composite images. They're very bad composite images. I'm a Photoshop guy. I live in Photoshop. Almost every day I'm doing something in Photoshop. I can show you, and have shown people, the clone, where they're using the clone tool to replicate clouds. This cloud is exactly the same as this cloud. These 5 clouds are exactly the same as this one, and showing you they're using the Photoshop clone tool. And you're like, well, wait a minute. You're telling us we're taking pictures of Pluto. We've taken pictures of Jupiter and Saturn, supposedly massively huge planets, way bigger than ours. And yet we have to have cartoon artwork and bad composite Photoshop images of our world? Really?
Then you start seeing videos, allegedly shot time-lapse videos from satellites showing the Earth in rotation. In one case, 25 hours of time-lapse rotation, and the clouds aren't changing. You're like, and some people say, well, they really are. You just got to get a higher resolution. And I've looked at the higher resolution one, which I question because I don't even think they had that ability in 1990. So it looks like somebody just redid it. But even still, the amount of movement that you were seeing is negligible for 25 hours. I mean, set a camera up outside for an hour and then speed it up on your computer and see how much cloud movement you get. So I began to question all of it. And but what caught my attention about that particular one is up in the upper right-hand corner of that particular marble, there's a odd-looking cloud formation that looks like sort of a backward C with a long tail that kind of wraps around the top part of the globe there. And it caught my attention because I was like, where did I see that before? I mean, just that shape. I'm like, where did I see that before? And I started looking through videos that I'd seen recently, and I saw two different videos. One was, I think it was on Netflix, The Universe, I think was the title of the show. And it was basically a transition, a video transition, like a wipe that was being used. They used that same Earth, but it wasn't a static picture. It was a moving, rotating globe.
Yeah.
And it had that exact same cloud formation in it. And then I started seeing it, once my eyes were open to it, I started seeing it pop up in several other videos and go, okay, how nice of NASA not only to take a picture of the Earth, but to make a perfect 3D model that videographers can use for their video productions for transitions.
Uh-huh.
And so that's when I realized, we're playing with 3D models here. This is not photographic evidence. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, well, back in 2004, I got hired as a missionary, but I was a multimedia missionary. My job was to get entrenched with the missionaries, do what they do, but to document it on video, come back and make videos to help them create awareness and raise support and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So being that I was in global missions, I made a 3D model of the Earth that I used a lot. Okay, we're going to Kazakhstan, so I would do a zoom out of Addison, Texas to Kazakhstan, and I use this globe thing, as much as I use Google Earth, I use this globe that I made. Mm-hmm. And when I was comparing the globe that I made, and when I say that, I say I made it loosely. There are tutorials that you can follow by downloading various maps from NASA and mapping them onto a ball that you create in 3D, and then put the clouds on, and make it daytime, nighttime, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm creating it from scratch. I'm using available stuff. But when I did that, and I would compare the globe that I made in 2006, it looked a lot better, at least in my humble and unbiased opinion, as Kent Hovind would say, than the blue marbles that were being passed off as authentic pictures of the Earth.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, look, if I can do this with off-the-shelf software that costs less than $300, what can these guys do with practically unlimited budgets?
Yep.
And so the photographic evidence was falling apart for me.
Yes, question.
So if you think you have questions,
Feel free to line up and ask them while I'm reading the opening statement.
the flat earthers have many, many more.
This is what returns to Earth.
Which is why I thought someone who's actually seen the Earth from space might have some answers.
1 + 1 is?
2.
What color is the sky?
Blue.
And the Earth is?
Round. Just like it is here, this model of it.
Okay, this is, in my opinion, where Eva dropped the ball. She went from being an investigative journalist to engaging in confirmation bias. Now, she was a newcomer to all this. She really didn't know anything about any of this stuff until like a day or two before she came and did the interviews. She was just given an assignment. And so even as you heard her say with Mark Sargent, she said it a few times with me, anybody that she was talking to, you could tell she thought the whole thing was crazy to begin with. This is crazy. Many people watching this are going to think this is crazy. So that's the mindset. And you can't blame her for that. She's just dealing with the same programming we've all had. We all had that exact same knee-jerk reaction. We all said the same thing. This is crazy. This is stupid. Until we actually spent the time to look into it. Now, in the extended version of the interview that she did with me, I challenged her. I challenged her and ABC News to get out there and do some tests. Well, they didn't do that. They went and engaged in confirmation bias and went and got somebody that they perceived to be an authoritative source that they could go to and confirm what they already believe. Well, I mean, that's not investigative journalism. Now, first of all, they're looking at a model, and he said the Earth is round. Well, yep, it is round. Circles are round, so he's not lying. But then they're looking at this yellowish green and orange globe behind them, saying it's just like this model right here. But what's really funny is the guy that she picked.
Professor Mike Massimino spent more than 20 days in space and worked on the Hubble telescope.
So when you looked at the planet, what did it look like?
It looks round, folks. It is round. My eyewitness account, and I looked at it as much as I could. It is round.
Okay, we're in the final countdown. How you doing over there?
He's played himself on the Big Bang Theory, but some flat earthers actually believe astronauts are just actors, part of a huge conspiracy going back to those very first steps on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is so funny to me, because she goes to an astronaut who is actually an actor and a Freemason, or at least there's good reason to believe he is a Freemason. Why do I say that? Well, somebody sent to me an interesting PDF. It's from MasonichOmeNewYork.org or ny.org. It's at the Empire State Mason Winter 2015. You know, all kinds of stuff. Grandmaster this, that, and the other thing. Freemason, blah, 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 blah. Scroll down to page 11. Announcing the 71st Annual Metropolitan Region's Masons and Families Dedication Service and Breakfast, sponsored by the Masonic Brotherhood Foundation, Incorporated. And looky, who's represented here as one of the past keynote speakers. And it's interesting to me that the guy before him, it gives a name and, you know, what these guys represent. The guy before him is billed as a former actor and humanitarian, right before Dr. Michael Massimino, NASA astronaut. And in the extended version of the interview that she did with me, I actually said, yeah, I started talking about the fact that many of the astronauts are Freemasons. She's like, you got something against the Freemasons? I'm like, yeah, I do. So she picks an astronaut who is both either a Freemason himself, or certainly friendly with them, and an actor who's pimping for the Big Bang Theory, no less. And that's what this whole Copernican model is all about. Evolution is not even remotely plausible without the Copernican model and the Big Bang Theory that allegedly created it. So you have, let's say, a potential Mason and an actor pimping for the Big Bang, all in that one little piece right there. Wow. Anyway, that was rather telling, in my opinion. Let's continue.
You don't believe that they've gone to space?
No, not at all. The rockets go up, sure. There's nobody in them.
All right, I'm not quite sure I would have worded it that way, although I may be with him in the sense that, yes, stuff goes up, rockets go up. Whether or not there's anybody in them or not, that's, I think, anybody's guess at this point. Could be. I mean, I can see how it would be possible, but I don't think we can definitively say there's no one in them. And I don't really have time to get into it here in this video, but, you know, as far as questioning the space program, yeah, go to aulis.com, start reading all that stuff, watch the documentaries by Bart Sibrel. A funny thing happened on the way to the moon, and astronauts gone wild. And there are lots of other videos that will probably populate in the suggested video column on YouTube. Spend time watching those videos that expose at least the Apollo program. Or we could just listen to the Flat Earth Man from the Conspiracy Music Guru channel as he summarizes a lot of these things in sort of a comical way in this music video here.
Well, a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. That's the title of a video that I watched on YouTube. You can see astronauts hanging from wires, proving that astronauts and NASA are liars. They analyze photos and highlight mistakes with the moon landing missions. They show it was faked. You can see them faking the photos of Earth. They use a round window to fake the curve. That's suspicious, don't you think? Yeah, listen up. I watched another documentary called Astronauts Gone Wild. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin gets a little riled. All he was asked to do was to swear to God that he went to the moon, but he would not. He was faced with a moon landing denier. Had a chance to show that he ain't no liar, but Buzz decided to punch that dude just for asking him to swear if he went to the moon. That's suspicious. So, do you still believe we went to the moon? Do you still believe what they're telling you? Just connect the dots and pretty soon you'll find out what I found out too. But if you question this stuff, you'll be labeled a loon. You'll be called a conspiracy theory buffoon, but I don't care, man. I'm still gonna make this too, cause I know that we didn't go to the moon.
Why don't you swear in the Bible that you walked on the moon? You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't.
And how about those moon rocks they gave to museums? And thousands of people did see them. But one museum took a closer look. They soon realized that something's afoot. The rock they were given turned out to be a fake. Just a piece of old wood, not a rock from space. Yeah, when God made the moon, he saw it was good, but apparently made it from petrified wood. Yeah, that's suspicious. Listen up. In another museum sits an astronaut suit. Take a good look at the tread on the boot. It doesn't match up with the prints on the moon. And y'all still believe what they're telling you? Or how about that phone call that Nixon made to the moon that's 250,000 miles away? When I can't get a signal on my cell phone line, I guess phones were better in '69. Well, do you still believe we went to the moon? Do you still believe what they're telling you? Just connect the dots and pretty soon you'll find out what I found out too. But if you question this stuff, you'll be labeled a loon. You'll be called a conspiracy theory buffoon, but I don't care, man. I'm still gonna make this too, cause I know that we didn't go to the moon.
And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made to the White House.
Yeah, you went straight through those Van Allen belts. It wasn't a problem, right? Nothing was felt. But now you say it's a problem and you can't get through. This problem needs to be solved, according to you. But didn't you solve that problem back in '69 and you flew straight through them 5 more times? You wonder why I think it's fake when there are so many Apollo mistakes, like the telemetry data that's all gone missing. 13,000 reels, are you kidding? A giant leap for all mankind, but you lost the data and no one can find. Come on, man, are you kidding? Do you still believe we went to the moon? Do you still believe what they're telling you? Just connect the dots and pretty soon you'll find out what I found out too. But if you question this stuff, you'll be labeled a loon. You'll be called a conspiracy theory buffoon, but I don't care, man. I'm still gonna make this too, cause I know that you can't go. No, there's no blast crater from the lunar module. Probably because that thing is just a model. Or the flag that flutters with no atmosphere. Don't you think that's a bit queer? Intersecting shadows means another light source. Do I think it's fake? Yeah, of course. The whole thing was filmed on a Hollywood set. Directed by Kubrick is my best bet. The moon's so cool, we'd love to explore it, but we can't get past low Earth orbit. Do your research, people, I think you'll find. But NASA admits that a bunch of times. Listen.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to And we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
And again, that's the Flat Earth Man from the Conspiracy Music Guru channel. But once you realize we didn't go to the moon, then start looking into the space shuttle program. There are some interesting things about that program too. And of course, look into the ISS. And there are lots and lots of videos that people are putting out. Now, some are good, some are not so good, some are really crappy, but some are really awesome. And I just want to play a couple of clips right here just to get your mind going as to what may very well be happening with the ISS footage.
Now, if you're part of the geek squad or the techie crowd, well, then you already know about this technology. And so let's get to the video that caught my attention, and you will see the same things that I saw. Let's watch.
We have to introduce the concept of free fall. So let's use this model of the Earth. And let's enlist the help of a friend, Taxi.
So what is significant about this video is, number one, it was live to school children. Number two, we have this stuffed animal that is transitioning in on another video channel. And the actor is able to reach up and grab this doll in real 3D space and manipulate this doll with their hands. And so the only way you're going to pull that off is with one technology. And that technology is virtual reality.
I'm going to have to disagree with Mike here. I like his stuff, first of all. Check out his channel, Mike Helmick. But I'm going to have to disagree with him on this. That's not the only way this could be possible. If you look above her head, pay attention to the shadow right here. This is the shadow being cast by the stuffed animal. So I believe that that's not an augmented reality or virtual reality composite object. It's actually physically there with her wherever she is. And it's hanging from the ceiling somehow, casting that shadow that you see on the ceiling behind her. So if you watch it before it appears and then watch it after it appears, the shadow remains consistent, telling us that that's actually in the physical space that she's in. But what is very interesting and very telling about this is it's absolute proof that somewhere between the camera that's shooting this video and the end user that's watching it is a video mixer. Now, as I understand it, this video clip was being broadcast live to some students. So they're watching it presumably in real time in the classroom. So if that's true, if they're actually watching this in real time, then there's a full video production suite somewhere in line between the camera and the television that the kids are watching this on. Somewhere in there, there's the video feed's going through a mixer that has multiple layers of video on it that you can dissolve and add special effects to. And you need to ask yourself why that's even there. Why would that be necessary either on the International Space Station or in mission control? If we are to accept the official story that this person's actually in a structure going around the Earth, why would they need to have a special effects video mixer in the first place? Just shoot video. Send it to us the way it is. We don't need anything, in between the video feed, like a mixer. And I would contend that this is actually a very simple trick, assuming you have a mixer that's capable of handling multiple video layers, and that there's, at minimum, 4 to 5 video layers here. There's the actual video footage itself, on layer 1 of this person talking. Then there's a mask right above her right shoulder that would have been from an image taken prior to them rolling live. And that image is just a short, probably a square mask just up in the upper left-hand corner of our screen, just above her right shoulder, covering up the stuffed animal that is actually in the physical space with her. So that would be the second layer, would be that mask. And all that happens here is it's just dissolving out. You're hitting dissolve on that video layer, and that video layer mask is dissolving out. Then you have the special effects layer on top of it, creating this sort of Star Trek Energizer looking special effect here. That's on another layer. And then you have the fourth layer for the ESA watermark, and a fifth layer for whatever this yellow object is that popped up earlier in the broadcast. So you have at least 4 to 5 video layers here. And that's how this effect is being done. So I don't believe that this particular effect is being done with virtual or augmented reality technology. However, Mike does have some other interesting things worth considering in that regard.
We now have the technology to simulate water, materials, fabrics live in real 3D space with virtual reality, but better yet, augmented virtual reality. And all augmented virtual reality is taking the objects in 3D space from a virtual reality world and putting them in our world on another screen, which we can see, manipulate, and touch with virtual reality contacts or glasses. In this next segment, I'm going to show you how NASA grabs objects in 3D space, rotates them around, manipulates them. They can do this with water, with cloth, anything. And the cool thing about it is we can take what they're doing, what they're seeing with their contact virtual reality augmented lenses, and put that on a separate video layer live. Yes, live, and do it all in real time. So I'm going to show you what it looks like to them as they're grabbing objects and manipulating them. And then I'm going to show you Microsoft's HoloSense video, their demonstration at E3 a couple years ago, of bringing a virtual reality into our world. And it is simply amazing. Let's watch.
Specifically, how HoloLens can turn every room of your house into a personalized video game level. But today, we want to take mixed reality one step further. So we've got something new to show you. Holograms you can hold. This holographic gauntlet is the weapon that Dan will be using while playing Project X-Ray. You'll notice that as he moves his arm, the hologram moves as well. This is a wearable hologram. And when you combine technology like this with the environment understanding of HoloLens, you can do some pretty spectacular things. And can even use his shield to defend himself. Nicely done. Looks like that's all of them.
In 2012, NASA got tired of faking weightlessness by using the zero-G plane, better known as the Vomit Comet. So in 2012, they started soliciting companies that specialize in real-time augmented virtual reality so that they can fake weightlessness and floating objects in the air in real time. Simply the cost of the plane and the safety concerns and the fact that they weren't very good at it. They didn't go to Hollywood, which most of Hollywood's effects are post-processing. That's after the video is made. They needed something they can do in real time and make it look realistic. And so I'll put this link in the description. They found a company called Telemetrics. Thank you, Debbie Durant, for bringing this to my attention. After I researched this, lo and behold, I found out our government has a contract with these people. And Telemetrics, basically what they do is they help news teams and they bring broadcasts together in real time, and they're able to create sets, cities, anything you want in a virtual reality world and make it look absolutely 100% real. They're also able to bring different people from around the world, put them in the same room and broadcast live, give them desks, whatever they need to make the broadcast. So it's a pretty amazing company. Here we see Johnson Space Center Telemetrics provided latest camera robotics technology to NASA's government television at Mission Control. Why do you need to fake virtual reality sets at Mission Control and Johnson Space Center? I think we know the answer to that when we saw Tim Peake on the gridded blue screen. So this next segment, I'm going to show you what it looks like when virtual reality being broadcast live doesn't work out so well because the system's not perfect. And then at the very end, I'm going to show you the mother of all screw-ups when they actually have a channel shut off that should be on. Because once again, these astronauts are looking in 3D space. They are grabbing objects because they're wearing augmented contact lenses. And if that object's not there broadcast to the viewers live, then it's going to look pretty ridiculous. So let's see some of NASA's screw-ups. I'll cover them as they happen, and then we'll move on to the final. Okay, so this is one of NASA's older videos where they use post-processing and masks. This is a video layer mask in augmented virtual reality. We're going to see him lose his finger here. The watch glitches out. So I guess virtual reality accidents can cause loss of fingers. In this next video, we have Caddy. Now I want you to pay attention to her neck and the way her neckline goes into her shirt. It's cut off. And the necklace. Apparently they wanted to show how cool this necklace looked. Unfortunately, it's not perfect. The necklace goes in and out of her shirt unnaturally, and her neck glitches in several places. I literally spent hours going after probably 30 or 40 videos, probably had approximately 45 minutes straight of NASA messing up their virtual reality setup. I tried to pick some clips that were obvious and some not so obvious. Show you some of the contacts. We're going to see Tim Peake with his contacts in, but these are virtual reality contacts overlaid on the eyes so actors can interact with things in 3D space, all in real time. In this next shot, we will get to see the whole arm setup and the virtual reality glove that covers all the way down the arm and hand. This allows the software to broadcast what we see video-wise as his arm in a shirt sleeve. Okay, I have a lot of Tim Peake screw-ups, but this one here, the system glitches. The software does not track his hand properly, and Tim slips his hand underneath his other fingers, which is tightly holding onto the mic, which would be impossible. I don't think this is Tim's fault. Normally, Tim always moves his other fingers up while he slides his hand under. I just think the system didn't respond to his movements here. This picture here is actually Tim's fault. His hand breaches the 3D mic floating in front of him. In this next clip, we're going to see Tim's arms glitch out as he's manipulating a 3D bubble. Now, this bubble can be done in real time now. We have the technology to do that, which I showed you at the beginning of this. And this bubble is environmentally lit, or HDRI lit, by its environment, which means the bubble can take up its reflections and refractions as it moves around in 3D space in Tim's augmented reality. Once again, augmented VR just means bringing the 3D objects into our world on a separate monitor. In this last clip, we're going to see NASA royally screw up. It's a live broadcast, and one of their video channels is off, not working. That's the channel that is supposed to show us, the public, what the astronauts are seeing in virtual reality. Also, the channel shut off is the masking for the guy on the wires in the background. You can't make this stuff up. Just watch. We all know NASA uses wires, and sometimes we'll catch them like this here. The guy pulled on his wire. However, some days when you're filming live, things just don't work out, and it becomes so blatantly obvious, it's ridiculous. So, in this clip, they're talking, live feed, and wouldn't you know, we have a astronaut go by us in the background, obviously trying to give it a more realistic, spacey, station busy effect. Okay, so you see to the right, this guy's flipping this hat. This hat's actually on another video channel in 3D space. It's virtual reality. They're wearing augmented contact lenses so that they can interact with these 3D objects. Now, in this scene, the guy on the left in the green shirt, he thinks he sees an object in 3D space that's being broadcast to him. So he grabs it and he puts it off to the side. He's looking straight ahead because he's looking at an object rotating in front of him, but the video channel is down that is supposed to show the viewers what we're supposed to see, and so we don't actually get to see the object that he is seeing. And I would just sum this up as a very terrible, bad, horrible day for NASA doing live feeds. Hey, Tim, you still there? Yeah. Can you explain to us what this astronaut's going through as he sees something with his eyes in 3D space, but it's not actually there being broadcast to the public? What's going through this astronaut's mind?
This system is sending signals to the brain that doesn't really match your eyes, and so your brain's trying to work out the two differences.
Here's the thing. As much fun as this was, there is a time coming when you and I will not be able to tell the difference, and space has not changed. Technology to fake space has gotten better. Just because Adobe gets a massive update to Photoshop or After Effects, or there's a massive update at telemetrics and the virtual reality, augmented virtual reality programming, that does not advance us magically 20 years in space. Space has not changed. It's flat. It's above us. It's dimensional, and we cannot orbit Earth. You have been warned. This is very serious stuff, and if you do not get it now, you won't get it later, because later you won't know the difference.
Welcome to the year 2018 and another huge fail by NASA. Last year they were awarded the Unity Awards for the best augmented or mixed reality experience for their CGI virtual reality Mars environment, and now they bring us this kind of video live. And this is just another fail by their virtual reality technology, beautifully explained by Mike Helmick in this video.
You need to have a stage prop, and the stage prop here is a hall section of the ISS. Also, you need on a separate video layer objects in virtual space that can move around by software, such as the paper on the wall, the netting there on the back, this contraption here on the right wall, and there's some boxes or something bungee corded above there. Now, all those objects are on a separate virtual layer, so they can be manipulated by software to look as if they are floating around. And of course, our three stooges here who are pretending to be astronauts, these guys are also on a separate video layer thanks to the technology of telemetrics, which can bring people in from all over the place and put them in a virtual reality environment. So what you're about to see, if the camera that contains the virtual reality layer, okay, glitches out, okay, or has maybe compression errors, then that layer will also glitch out, and this is exactly what we're going to see now.
Thank you very much again. Thank you for your time. Have a good flight and many more exciting experiments on the orbit. Thanks a lot.
Now, when they said goodbye, I guess the virtual reality camera was cut off. And so the objects that were on the virtual reality layer, the objects that needed to be floated in space by 3D software, vanish out. I want you to notice the hull, the other camera, the stage prop, the hull of the ISS, stays perfectly in focus. If this had been a compression error from the ISS, the whole video would have washed out, but only the virtual reality layer gets washed out here. Also note, you can see the green screen behind the guy right about here. When he's there, it is, the green screen right there behind him starts to show, and then they cut to mission control.
Now, as this other YouTuber named Astronaut was saying a minute ago, NASA won the Unity Award in 2017 for the best augmented or mixed reality experience. Okay, so this shows you that NASA is actively involved not only in the video production business in the sense of basic and, I would say, in some cases, complex video editing production for live presentations as well as post-production, but they are also actively involved in the creation of augmented and virtual reality simulations. They even won an award for it. And let me show you this technology. There's a comic book, and I believe it's actually the largest comic book ever made, both in terms of print size as well as volume. It's like a 300-page large format comic book called Anomaly. Now you can download the augmented reality app that goes with this comic book. And when you use either an iPad or an iPhone that has this app installed, and you look at specific pages that it lays out, tells you, hey, you know, we've got some augmented reality stuff for you to check out. It does some pretty interesting things. In fact, even the cover of it, check this out. I mean, look at that. That's pretty crazy right there. And I can stick my hand in there, you know, show you. See, I can interact with that. So just imagine that what we're looking at here is the live feed that is being sent to a school or what have you. And I'll just show you some of the possibilities here. You can flip through these things, and there are some of these that are actually interactive. So, like, let's go to this page here, and this little robot guy pops up, and you can interact with it. You know, poke him, you know, and he responds.
I am servitor unit Potter 1123-554.
You know, so I mean, this is interactive, augmented reality. So you want to know how they've got floating microphones and stuff like that? Well, check this out. See, I can interact with that too. This is augmented reality in a comic book, folks. And keep in mind, NASA has something like over $50 million a day of your tax money that they can use to both develop and utilize this kind of deceptive technology. And I gotta say, this is a really good catch. This is showing one layer of video having some sort of video feedback going on here. And I know that that's what this is. This is video feedback. Either somebody prematurely pulled a plug or something. Because I actually created pretty much the same effect on purpose when I did a Star Trek spoof for a Lego video back in the 90s now. This is back in the day when we were just moving into nonlinear computer video editing. I still actually had two video decks, an A and B deck that was going through a mixer into a record deck. And there was a patch bay. And I intentionally pulled the plug and actually twisted it so that it would intentionally create feedback. And that's what happened right here. And I did it on two separate layers to simulate them, this guy going through like warp speed. All right, so this looks very much to me like video feedback on one channel. As Mike pointed out, the footage for the main set remains intact. The foreground images that are meant to be floating around is what is affected by this feedback. And I think he's absolutely right. That looks very much like a green screen pixelization over this guy's shoulder right here. So, you know, this to me is some serious smoking gun damning video footage.
Well, let me tell you something about the space station. It's only really there in your imagination. That thing ain't real, it's science fiction. It's there to feed your space addiction. Those astronauts are not in space. It's written all over their stupid face. See, I can spot a lie from 100 miles, and I can spot a fraud from the way they smile. Didn't you learn nothing from the fake moon mission? That puppet show from President Nixon. Well, listen up, they're doing it again, it seems. Check out the harnesses and green screens. I used to work a lot in film and TV. I know a bit about the television trickery to create the illusion that you're somewhere that you're not. A green screen is what you're gonna use a lot. Or if you wear a harness and attach it to the ceiling, the illusion that you're floating is what they'll be believing. All you're watching is a puppet show. Yeah, the whole world's a stage. Astronauts, they're actors, of course, and yeah, they all get paid. Look at me, ma, I'm floating in space. No, you're not, you're lying to the human race. So let me tell you something about a zero-G plane. This thing flies up and then down again. Some weird stuff happens if you're on the inside. You start to float as the plane takes a dive. Simply add an actor that's trained to deceive, and you got yourself an astronaut, or so you believe. Plane flies up and that's everyone's cue. Then action, we got some deceiving to do. Plane flies down and then everyone knows to start the ISS live show. Floating in a plane with zero-G, but you only see astronauts on your TV. All you're watching is a puppet show, yeah, the whole world's a stage. Astronauts, they're actors, of course, and yeah, they all get paid. Look at me, ma, I'm floating in space. No, you're not, you're lying to the human race. Well, another thing I noticed when I looked at these fools, they're filming spacewalks in buoyancy pools. NASA's gonna tell you that it's just for training, to practice for space station maintaining. Well, I thought about that, but if that's the case, then why the hell can I see bubbles in space? Take a hard look at the next spacewalk. Tell me if you can see bubbles at all. Open your eyes, man, I'll bet you a quarter those spacewalks are filmed underwater. I can see space bubbles everywhere. Hey, NASA, how the hell did those get there? All you're watching is a puppet show, yeah, the whole world's a stage. Astronauts, they're actors, of course, and yeah, they all get paid. Look at me, ma, I'm floating in space. No, you're not, you're lying to the human race. So when you see an astronaut aboard the ISS, take another look at your TV set. They're pretty good at faking, so you gotta look close. Pay some attention to the way the actor floats. If you ask me, that ain't zero gravity, but Hollywood effects that I see on my TV. Take a good look at the whole damn thing. These lying bastards are just puppets on a string. It's all a big science fiction puppet show. The game's up, NASHoles, cause we all know. Thanks for the show, NASA. It's been a blast. Now take your fake station and shove it up your... All you're watching is a puppet show, yeah, the whole world's a stage. Astronauts, they're actors, of course, and yeah, they all get paid. Look at me, ma, I'm floating in space. No, you're not, you're lying to the whole human race. All you're watching is a puppet show, yeah, the whole world's a stage. Astronauts, they're just actors, of course, and yeah, they all get paid. Look at me, ma, I'm floating in space. No, you're not, you're lying to the whole human race, man. All you're watching is a puppet show, yeah, the whole world's a stage. Astronauts, they're actors, of course, and yeah, they all get paid. Look at me, ma, I'm floating in space. No, you're not, you're lying to the whole human race. All you're watching is a puppet show, yeah, the whole world's a stage. Astronauts, they're just actors, of course, and yeah, they all get paid.
And you gotta ask yourself, if we know for a fact that they faked stuff in Apollo, and we've got reasonable doubt about some of the space shuttle missions, and more videos coming out exposing the ISS with footage just like this, there's lots of stuff out there. There's some really good YouTubers out there who have been watching these guys like a hawk and pulling down footage like this. These people are lying to us with our money. Tens of millions of dollars a day they're lying to us. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not going to trust a potential Freemason actor who supposedly was on a space shuttle allegedly working on the Hubble telescope. And if you want to know more about that, I would suggest looking up some of the videos that Robert Pisano did on Hubble and Sophia. But when you've got so many videos exposing what's going on up there as a fraud, I'm sorry, but, you know, an astronaut is just not a credible witness. And when you realize that NASA started out with an intimate relationship with Walt Disney, and, you know, many suspect Stanley Kubrick, and I tend to agree that Stanley Kubrick was instrumental in at least the Apollo 11 mission. The other ones may have been farmed out based on his experience, based on what they learned on Apollo 11. But if you look at the special features on 2001: A Space Odyssey and see how they did some very simple tricks to fool the audience into believing that they were in space in a zero-G environment, then you realize that there's stuff that can be done, basically smoke and mirrors, visual illusions that can be created, in addition to what is done now in the computer with augmented or virtual reality. I mean, just by way of illustration, I would suggest you watch the special features for the movie Gravity, first of all. See how they, I saw that in 3D IMAX on a huge screen with, pretty much all of my peripheral vision taken up by the screen in 3D. I mean, I felt like I was out there with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, flying around in space. I mean, it was a very realistic environment, but, it was all done with the magic of special effects. Here's a clip from, I think this is the movie Inception, maybe, talking about some of the effects that they did in that movie.
The vertical corridor is supposed to be the same location as the horizontal corridor, and it's an identical set. The difference is that it has been built vertically, so it's standing on its end. And this means we can drop actors and stunt performers on wires down into the set, and the camera looks up at them. And they can then be raised or lowered, they can swing around inside the set, and it looks like they're floating in zero gravity, and it looks like they're floating in zero gravity, and it looks like they're floating in zero gravity.
What they told me is they've never felt so relaxed in their life. What I did is the exact opposite of that. In order to make it look like that was the case, I actually had to keep every muscle tight because I was supporting myself. I didn't have to worry about making myself look as if I was having a hard time. I was having a hard time.
Traditionally, zero-gravity movie scenes, such as those in Apollo 13, had been shot on a NASA-issue KC-135A airplane nicknamed the Vomit Comet, for disgusting, obvious reasons. The plane would take off at a 45-degree angle, then taper off at the top of its elliptical arc, resulting in about 25 seconds of weightlessness. The special effects team then engineered 7 steel I-beam rings set every 16 feet along the hallway. These were connected to massive roller wheels of 30 feet in diameter. Each of those wheels was then linked to 2 55-horsepower electric motors. However, in order to track the motion of the actors in such a way that it appeared gravity was being warped, the cameras had to be locked down onto the set itself. This was done in order to maintain a frame of reference consistent with the dimensions of the hallway. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the main star of the scene, rehearsed for 2 weeks prior to shooting, including physical training, wire work, combat, and familiarizing himself with the revolving corridor. In order to stay attuned to the cadence of his rotating geography so he could hit his marks with his fight choreography,
It looks like we're jumping on the ceiling and stuff. In order to actually get it done, I couldn't think of it that way. I had to think of it as, this is the ground. Okay, now this is the ground. Okay, now this is the ground.
Okay, so, start watching these videos of these clowns. They are puppets on strings. You got these guys, I think this is from the crew of Atlantis. Looks like he's grabbing a wire right there on the side of his buddy. You got the freak in the background with their hair like that. Watch videos of actors in zero-G planes. Their hair doesn't look like that. Their hair moves around like as if they're in water. It actually moves around, but it seems like everybody in space has to have a Medusa hairspray deal, and they're puppets on strings. That's what these guys are. And we believe it. They're using augmented reality. I think this is, really telling footage right here. This guy, it looks like he's not quite used to the augmented reality. Look at his eyes right there. It's like he's looking off he's seeing something that we're not seeing. And, he thinks he's grabbing something and putting it away, but he's not touching anything. You got, astronauts in the background there. Hello, Tim, against a blue screen background right there. I think these people are just laughing at us. This looks like a bozo clown right here. This image of the Earth that was given to us. And if you think that's not possible, consider this. All right, this is, some illusionists floating around. You know, we know that they're on wires. If you look really closely, you can kind of see around his hips, you know, the distortion around his hips of the string. But, you know, whatever they're using for string is transparent to the human eye and virtually indistinguishable. This isn't even CGI here. This is a real visual effect. This is an illusion. I went and saw David Copperfield when I was in high school, and the girl I was dating then that I took with me. All right, wait a minute. Look at this scene right here. Look at his waist, right around his belt line there. See how it pulls up right there. He is being lifted up by some sort of harness mechanism. But she put that hoop around him, you know, so to show, hey, you know, there's no wires, you know, somehow the wires are going through the hoop. But when I was in high school, I went to see David Copperfield, and the girl that I was dating at the time, we went together. And as soon as we walk in, this guy says to her, "You're perfect." And I'm like, "Perfect or what, here, buddy?" And I'm thinking, you know, what the heck is this guy? And he said, "No. David would like to have a quote unquote volunteer to do one of the tricks, and as an incentive, they gave us like third or fourth row seats, you know, replacing I think we probably had nosebleed seats at the time, you know, because those tickets were expensive. And so we ended up with like, I think it was third or fourth row seats. And so they took her away somewhere and escorted me to my seat. And like 30 minutes later or something, she came back and sat down. I'm like, "What happened?" She goes, "I can't talk about it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm like, "Come on, you know, I'm trying to get it." And then she started acting like she didn't even remember. So, you know, maybe she was hypnotized. I don't know. But during the show, David Copperfield came down from the stage. You know, "I need a volunteer." And he pretended to be looking. He walked past us. And then he turned around, and you know, that whole row and that particular seat was obviously marked for his benefit to know who it was. And he said, "You." And so picked my girlfriend, brought her up on stage, and he levitated her. He did some of this stuff like these people are doing right here with her on stage and the hoop and the whole deal. And, you know, again, I'm like third, fourth row, and I'm looking, I can't see anything. There's no evidence of wires, harnesses, or anything. And when she was sitting next to me, she didn't have a harness on. There was no ropes or strings attached to her when she was sitting next to me in the audience. So I'm just saying that, you know, things can be done with smoke and mirrors, visual illusions. If illusionists like David Copperfield or like these two right here can simulate floating around, well, I'm pretty sure an organization that has over $50 million a day might be able to do the same thing. So frankly, I'm not impressed with seeing somebody floating around. And when I see countless videos showing the deception that these guys are involved with, I don't believe them. And you shouldn't either.
I hope you're ready to listen fast, because I'm ready to speak fast.
Rob Skiba is another one of the celebrity contrarians in the Flat Earth movement. His popular YouTube videos and podcasts take clues from the Bible's book of Genesis.
There's no way you can get a spinning heliocentric globe out of anything in the Bible.
Are you just skeptical of everything?
I have become skeptical of everything, and I think rightfully so.
That was a creative piece of editing right there. You know, I get it. They're just trying, and they're fairly representing me here, so I'm not complaining. But they crammed two different conversations together from different portions of the almost hour-long interview. But I will say I'm glad, you know, of the clips that they picked for me. I only talked about the Bible for maybe 5 minutes, if that, of the whole hour-long or so interview. And you know, if they're going to represent me in any way, that's the way I want to be represented. I want to be represented for standing firm on the Word of God, and I don't care what you think, what you believe. The simple fact of the matter is, the Bible is a flat earth book. And I happen to believe that the Bible is the Word of God, that it is divinely inspired by the Holy Spirit and written by men and under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. The whole Bible, the whole narrative starts off with the first book, first chapter, describing the cosmos. And like I said in that clip right there, there's no way you can get a spinning heliocentric ball floating in an ever-expanding universe out of anything in Genesis chapter 1 or in any other text in the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. She was intrigued by somebody who is skeptical and questions the status quo. And when you watch the full version, it blew her mind that somebody would question what we've been told. Even to the point where I said, "Don't believe me," and she was like, "Why would you even say that?" And I'm like, "Well, because I have opinions. It doesn't mean I'm right."
I can tell you something. You can choose to believe me or not. Does that mean I'm right? If I tell you something, does that mean I'm right? Even if you accept it, doesn't mean I'm right. So I'm looking at it the same way. I'm like, okay, just because these guys are saying it doesn't mean it's right. Well, let's go see if we can find out.
But just because you guys are saying it doesn't mean it's right.
I'm telling you, don't believe me. Look at the camera. Don't believe a thing I say. Get out and test for yourself.
That seems so crazy to me.
To test for yourself? That seems crazy?
No, that you're like saying, don't believe me.
Why? I'm against believing what somebody else said just because they said it. So I'd be a hypocrite and say, hey, please believe me just because I said it.
It almost is like, were you saying that you're like, everyone's a liar? Like I'm lying
no,
too?
I don't think it's necessarily lying. It's lying if you know you're intentionally deceiving somebody. If you have believed the lie, and then you parrot the lie,
right?
Are you really lying?
So you rationalize the fact that this is the truth according to you. But you would not say 100% this is the truth. The absolute truth.
I would tell you, don't believe it. I would tell you, I believe it, and this is why I believe it. But I'll tell you, and if anybody searches my lectures, I speak on lots of things. I start pretty much every lecture I say by saying, don't believe a thing I say. Search and see if these things be true.
Because you're not 100%.
Well, I believe it, but that doesn't mean I'm right. I don't claim to have the corner on truth. I believe things to be true, but belief. I had a portion of my presentation that I gave yesterday called The Absurdity of Belief. And the reason I titled it that is because if I firmly believe something that you don't, you're saying, this is absurd. Right? You could do the same thing. Say something you believe, absolutely. And I'm like, oh, this woman's crazy. That's completely absurd. So belief, that's not a basis for anything.
We can listen to people that we think are respectable, they have credibility, whatever, hear whatever they have to say, and it's too tempting to just say, well, they're a respectable person with credibility, so I just believe them. Like the astronaut. She apparently is not used to thinking for herself. And that's not to slam her. That's not her fault. That's the way we've all been raised. We've all been brought up to not question anything. Just be a good student, memorize what you're supposed to, regurgitate what they shove down your throat, and you pass. Okay, you're good to go. Don't think, just regurgitate. But of course, as this interview continued, we start getting into the realm of conspiracy, and it's too tempting to just write everything off. Oh, you guys are all just a bunch of conspiracy nutcases. And she kind of tried to work that angle a little bit, I think, with this piece.
Pretty much everyone here, though, is kind of a conspiracy theorist.
I'd say that's a common trait, but I think there's a little bit of conspiracy theorists in all of us. I really do.
This is going to be fun.
It's why many of them do their own experiments. Daryl Marble packed a level on a flight to test if the plane was flying parallel to a flat Earth.
So there's going to be some science-y people who say that is a real Bobo experiment.
They have.
That's a little basic.
I know. It's so simple, it'll go right over your head.
Brilliant answer by D. Marble. It's so simple, it'll go right over your head. Yeah, you know what? It is a simple test, and it is a test anybody can do, and it is an important test. I'm going to go ahead and play a clip from one of the debunking videos where I addressed D. Marble's test, which I had actually done as well, to drive this point a little deeper. Here's my challenge to anyone willing to take me up on it. Bring a compass, a good camera, and a spirit level. And if somebody out there can make this flight and document it, do what Max Egan did, send me the video. I'd love to see it. That would be something really cool to check out.
So taking on his cue, I brought my compass on this flight, and I brought my there's a digital compass on the phone that also has a digital level, and I brought a spirit level. Things didn't happen that should be happening.
Okay, so here you see my spirit level, and here you see both my phone and my wife's phone. We have the compass app that also has a level on it, and as I was tilting it right there, you can see how it works. It shows negative, up or down, if it's tilting forward or backwards. Got my compass out here, put it next to the two phones that I had right here. I'm using both phones to kind of double check with two sources. I decided not to have my level nearby because it has a magnet on it, and it could be causing a problem for the compass, so I stashed that away in my luggage so it's not going to cause a problem. And so I recorded it actually separately. What you see in the top left corner here is a video I shot of about 15 minutes worth of just the spirit level. I got rid of everything else, so it's just the spirit level sitting on my tray table. And I recorded that for 15 minutes. And then separately, the video below that here is with the two iPhones and the level app on those phones with my compass. And I recorded that for about 15 minutes. So other than some minor turbulence here and there causing it to switch to about -1, I think was the most I saw as far as it changing its level, they both stayed in the green at 0. So, I mean, here's two tests I did. One with just a spirit level for 15 minutes, and one with two iPhones using the same app, just to make sure both of them are working right. Every now and then I had to tap my phone and my wife's phone because it wanted to go into sleep mode. But otherwise, there you have it. So at no time did the plane ever show any indication of going into a nosedive as you would expect that it needs to when you're flying over a ball. And I know there's people going to argue against that. And that's I'll make another video that deals with that issue. Oh, gravity is taking care of the whole situation. No, it's not. You don't understand how a gyroscope works. But again, that's a whole other video. Right here, you see the on-screen display showing our speed, showing the path we're taking. In the top right, I've got a freeze frame of that. You show the circle of the Earth navigation from Minneapolis to Amsterdam, which on the flat Earth map is a straight line. So there you go. And again, I'm just kind of going back and forth with my camera, just kind of showing. Tapping the phone again because it's want to go into sleep mode. The compass gave pretty much an accurate reading the whole way as I expected it would in the northern hemisphere. I expected it to show an accurate representation of our flight path, both on the circle of the Earth navigation as well as the straight line on the circle of the Earth. So that's no surprise to me. The Max Egan one isn't really a surprise either if you subscribe to the circular flat Earth model. His reading's exactly what you would expect it to be, but not what you would expect it to be if you're looking at the on-screen display in the circle of the Earth navigation. So that's why I wanted to show that clip before this one. Again, there's a lot more to talk about. I don't have the time to do it with this video right here. I just wanted to get out because a lot of people were asking me what happened. People saw the picture that I posted on Facebook saying, hey, I'm all set, ready to go on my flight. I got my compass, my level, and ready to do some tests on the flight. And so since people have been asking me over and over and over again, what were the results? What were the results? I decided just to put this video together. Maybe at some time in the future I'll do another video that will explain the issues of the avionics, the attitude indicator, the altimeter, the airspeed indicator, and how a gyro works, and show that the whole idea that gravity is keeping the plane level is utterly ridiculous. We should be having to dive down. Actually, we're going faster than 500 miles an hour. The calculation I had where it said that we should have to either take a nosedive every 12 minutes to 1.26 miles, or show an increase in altitude of 1.26 miles, or what is that? About 6,653 feet every 12 minutes. Now, again, that calculation is based on going 500 miles per hour, but as you'll see on the on-screen display, we were going closer to 600 miles an hour. So we would have that problem in less than 12 minutes. I'm not going to do the math out here. Somebody else could do that if you feel so inclined. But at any rate, as I monitored the altitude, I never saw much more than a very minor fluctuation, maybe 5 or 10 feet or something like that, which could be accounted for with updrafts and turbulence and things of that nature. So never saw a dramatic increase of altitude, which you should see if you're flying straight and level, and all of the instruments that I had were showing that we are flying straight and level. I'm sure in the cockpit the attitude indicator was showing that too, because that's how a pilot flies. He's always monitoring. I mean, he's got lots of instruments to monitor as well as radios and stuff like that, but 3 instruments that you're really paying a lot of attention to when you're flying is the airspeed indicator, the attitude indicator, and the altimeter. And they really work together, because if you're all of a sudden noticing that you're increasing in airspeed, there's a pretty good chance you're probably in a dive. If you're decreasing in airspeed, there's a pretty good chance that you're in a climb. And or if you're looking at the attitude indicator and you're seeing, well, I'm in a climb or I'm in a dive, you'll notice that in your airspeed indicator as well as in your altimeter. So these instruments would be in conflict with each other if you're flying over a ball. If you are focused on keeping your airspeed the same and keeping your attitude the same, i.e. keeping the horizon perfectly level, in both to your eyes if you're able to see the horizon out the window, as well as to the attitude indicator itself. If you're keeping that plane straight and level, flying straight and level and maintaining airspeed, then your altimeter, if you're flying over a ball, must show an increase in altitude. And I'm sorry, gravity's not going to save you. So anyway, I'll just go ahead and let this play the rest of the way. I recorded for about 15 minutes twice. Again, once for just the spirit level, and again with the 2 iPhones and my compass. And I took both tests, put them here on the screen for you to watch both tests at the same time. And well, you'll see. We'll just let it play out for 15 minutes, and you'll see that there was no change whatsoever. Brought a compass, a spirit level, and I used the compass app and the level app in the my wife's iPhone and my iPhone. So I had like double and triple check tests going on at the same time. Had a nice long flight to do it on too. And yes, it is true that pilots fly the Great Circle navigation. The Great Circle, yes. Because what it does is it creates an artificial equator, because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So that's forcing a straight line, bisecting the ball into 2 hemispheres, basically. But what's interesting is, like when I did the flight to Amsterdam, this was the path that I took. Okay. And we're going over to Amsterdam. We're going to go up over Greenland like this. Interesting thing, on the circle of the Earth, it's a straight line. Kind of cool. So yeah, but I mean, this is the other problem, is if you're flying in a commercial airliner at 500 miles per hour, you'll be flying at about 8.33 miles per minute. 8.33 times 60 minutes equals 499.8 miles in an hour. Thus, at 8.33 miles per minute and times 12 minutes, you will travel 99.96 miles. So, for example, rounding up to 100 miles, in the first 12 minutes, the expected curvature below you is 1.26 miles. And it just keeps getting exponentially higher and higher as you go. So, if you have an attitude indicator, which tells you if you're turning left or right or diving or climbing, and you have an airspeed indicator and an altimeter, 3 very important instruments that pilots are always scanning. And if you got your plane trimmed for level flight, And the gyro is spun up inside, and the airframe is caged to the gyro. The function of the gyro is to maintain rigidity in space apart from gravity. If it was dependent on gravity, stunt pilots could never do what they do. Pulling the G's and doing all this, they can never rely on their instruments because all their instruments would be completely jacked up due to gravity. The function of the gyro is to maintain rigidity in space apart from gravity. So if you've got your airframe caged to the attitude indicator gyro on the flight line at level, then when you're flying and you trim your flaps and everything, your controls for straight level flight, and your attitude indicator shows that it's right across the horizon, is going right across the center of the gauge. You're not climbing, you're not diving, you're not turning left or right. It's level, and you're maintaining a constant speed. If you keep your airspeed at 500 and your attitude indicator straight and level, then your altimeter must begin to register 1.26 miles in the first 12 minutes, and it keeps going higher and higher and higher from there. 60 in 36 minutes, 60,086 feet. You should be above the ground, and eventually you just shoot out in space. And people try to use the argument, well, there's like a gravity holding on to the bottom of the plane, and it's like tied to a rope, and it's maintaining level. Sorry, that doesn't work with the gyro.
The following is taken from the most recent edition of the Federal Aviation Administration's publication, The Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, Chapter 7, page 15. There are two fundamental properties of gyroscopic action: rigidity in space and precession. Rigidity in space means the gyroscope remains fixed in the plane in which it is spinning. Thus, if the gimbal rings are tilted, twisted, or otherwise moved, the gyro remains in the original plane. Rigid in space. Let's watch a few gyros in action. Up first is a video produced by the United States Navy in 1960, used to train pilots on the mechanics of their flight instruments.
To understand any gyroscopic instrument, you must understand the principle of the gyroscope. It consists of a rotor mounted in a gimbal. The rotor can spin in one plane only. When another gimbal is added, a second plane of movement is possible. And when this assembly is mounted in bearings, the rotor has three planes of movement and can assume any possible attitude. This is now a freely mounted gyroscope. A spinning gyro has two important properties: precession and rigidity in space. All of its practical applications are based on these two properties. As for rigidity in space, the spinning rotor remains in its original attitude, while the gimbals and base move around it. In other words, the gyro maintains its axis in relation to space and not to the surface of the Earth. If a gyro moves around the Earth, its axis is vertical to the Earth's surface here, at an angle here, and horizontal here.
The spinning wheel prefers to stay oriented as it is, and it resists any attempt to change that orientation. The fact that gyroscopes will maintain a particular orientation in space is very useful. In modern aircraft, an inertial guidance system uses spinning gyroscopes to monitor and control the orientation of the aircraft. The gyroscope is suspended in a special cage that allows it to maintain its orientation independent of the aircraft's position.
An attitude indicator, also known as an artificial horizon, is an instrument used in an aircraft to inform the pilot of the orientation of the aircraft relative to Earth's horizon. It indicates pitch, fore and aft tilt, bank, side-to-side tilt, and is a primary instrument for flight in instrument meteorological conditions. Pilots must rely on this instrument in order to maintain control of the aircraft during flight in IMC.
Each instrument continuously indicates the roll and pitch attitude of the aircraft in relation to the actual horizon, and each obtains this information from a freely mounted gyro. The axis of the rotor is vertical and, due to the property of rigidity, will remain in this position as the aircraft assumes any attitude. Therefore, the gyro establishes a vertical reference from which roll and pitch deviations of the aircraft can be measured.
Another excerpt from the pilot handbook states, "The gyro is mounted in a horizontal plane and depends upon rigidity in space for its operation. The aircraft actually rotates around the spinning gyro." Now that we have a fundamental understanding of how the gyroscope and attitude indicator works, let's contemplate an intriguing and quite contradictory scenario. A scenario that occurs every single day during every single flight. When an aircraft takes off, climbs to its final altitude and levels off, the attitude indicator depicts a perfectly level attitude. As the aircraft travels towards its destination, sometimes in excess of 7,000 to 8,000 miles, the aircraft's attitude indicator maintains a perfectly level attitude. This, as we have seen, cannot be correct, because the gyro maintains its original position in space, regardless of the aircraft's attitude, or its position on the Earth. According to known gyroscopic properties, a pilot flying by reference to his attitude indicator should in reality begin to fly away from the Earth, as the gyro will continually give a straight line from the plane in which the aircraft started. Again, it is stated that the attitude indicator is reliable and the most realistic flight instrument. It gives an instantaneous indication of even the smallest changes in attitude, and, since the gyro relies on rigidity in space, the aircraft actually rotates around the spinning gyro. Therefore, we can logically only conclude two answers to our problem. Either A, the gyroscope operates on a set of properties unknown to modern physics, in which case, many aircraft must be susceptible to potential errors from an instrument we truly do not understand. Or B, our world is not what we have been told. The curvature of the Earth is not what is claimed by NASA, nor is it curved much at all, lest the gyroscope would read inaccurately during every flight. One can only conclude that the gyroscopic properties are fundamentally true, and therefore the world in which we live has a few more questions that need answering.
Gyro's job is to maintain rigidity in space apart from gravity, independent of gravity. I mean, if gyros are subject to the same forces that humans are, well, when you talk about G-forces, you're pretty much screwed. if the gyro is reacting to gravity like this, it's not a very reliable instrument. And perhaps that's why NASA has, I mean, you could go to NASA websites and see for yourself where they have documents like this right here. You click on that, it takes you to a PDF. It's of a document called The Derivation and Definition of a Linear Aircraft Model. NASA reference publication 1207, published in 1988. You can scroll down to the opening statements. Summary: this report documents the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model for a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. The derivation makes no assumptions of reference trajectory or vehicle symmetry. The linear system equations are derived and evaluated along a general trajectory and include both aircraft dynamics and observation variables. And you can scroll through this document, and most of this is aviation mathematics and things of that nature. A lot of math going on here. And scroll down to page 30, concluding remarks. This report derives and defines a set of linearized system matrices for a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying in a stationary atmosphere. In other words, the atmosphere is not being velcroed to the Earth, traveling 1,000 miles an hour, over a flat, non-rotating Earth. So they're saying it again in the concluding remarks. And you can find another document that's similar to that one at the FAA.gov website. You can probably read this long URL here if you're interested. And you can scroll down to page 32. Somewhere thereabouts. Yeah. The observant reader will notice that the aircraft equations of motion were calculated assuming a flat Earth, and that we here assume the development frame was the northeast down frame. This implies necessarily that Earth rotation and the variation of gravity vector with position over the Earth were ignored in developing the aircraft equations of motion. Okay, we're talking about high-performance aircraft traveling at or below Mach 3, and yet all of their equations are based on a non-rotating flat Earth? And someone will say, well, that just simplifies the math. Well, it also could just be that you can't fly the way they say you're going to fly if you're flying over a ball. I mean, this is the FAA and NASA saying that they create their aircraft performance analysis based on a non-rotating flat Earth. Go figure. And this is perhaps because of all the reasons that I've been talking about here so far. So D Marble did his spirit level test. I did my spirit level tests. I'm sure there's probably others out there that did spirit level tests as well. And I found this video here by Paul on the Plane where he's talking about a fairly recent test he did back in September 2017 or August using a bubble level app on his phone. I guess this is, I think, the second or third time he's done it, actually. Check this out.
So today's video is a little experiment I conducted last month while traveling on business. I was back in Lake Tahoe. Many of you may remember the 18-mile convex water experiment on Lake Tahoe. I think it was last March, from which I drew the conclusion that either the Earth is much larger than we've been told, or it's generally flat. No, I didn't find any water curving over the 18 miles, even though the pictures of Tahoe we get from quote-unquote space that we are given show major curvature. So there's two casinos on the South Shore that stand about 200 feet high, and I was able to see them from 18 miles away with my Nikon P900. So yeah, do the math. I shouldn't have been able to see them. But I digress. Okay, so this experiment is another bubble level app experiment. And yep, I'm the guy who flew from Seattle to Ireland last June to test the alleged curvature with the bubble level app and found that there was no curvature. We flew over a flat, fixed Earth many thousands of miles. I also did a video driving about 200 miles to measure curvature with the app and of course failed to find any. It's funny how everyone who goes out attempting to measure curvature is unable to. Huh. Crazy, eh? Okay, but back to the bubble level app on our smartphones. It's funny how many people still think that the bubble level app, which unlike a traditional bubble level can be locked at any orientation, at any angle or degree, and that they think it would not show a change in the bubble, especially over so many miles. They simply don't get how the technology works, I guess. We should be able to lock the orientation of the phone in free space with the bubble level app and slowly see the bubble move off center over a period of even 30 to 60 minutes as the alleged spin of the Earth happens. You globe defenders do get that, right? I mean, the phone is locked into a certain orientation in free space, so any movement of the phone will register a change in the bubble. Any movement of the phone's angle will register a change in the bubble. Think about that some more. Okay, so many people have even proven that the phones are sensitive enough to measure the Earth's spin, but it's funny how the spin never is registered. Okay, I digress. Again. So I got a lot of feedback on my Seattle to Ireland video that since I was flying west to east and the Earth allegedly rotates east to west, that I simply flew quote-unquote into the spin and stayed relatively on the same latitude, even though I flew a lot farther north, that the bubble level app didn't register a change because I was relatively in the same position as when I left Seattle some 15 hours earlier. Kind of a stretch, but it seemed to be a common theme that I was getting. Even the awesome Jaren from Jarenism on Globebusters, on a Globebusters episode a week or so later, commented that he'd like to see the same experiment done on a trip north to south or south to north, so that argument could not be used. Well, that's the experiment that I conducted here. I was flying from Reno, Nevada to Seattle, Washington, which is clearly a south to north route, as you can see here on the map. So there's no chance that I flew into the alleged spin or could be in the same relative position after the 2.5-hour flight between the two airports. Okay, so here was my results. I took a screenshot of the bubble level app sitting on the plane in Reno, and you can see the time date stamp here, and the other screenshots I took showing the altitude and the latitude and longitude from the two apps to confirm my position on this flat, fixed plane that we live. So these coordinates will show you that I was here when I took the first measurements. And then a few hours later, when I landed in Seattle, I did the same thing. I took a screenshot of the bubble level app, and as you can see, no change. It should have been off by at least a few degrees. I mean, considering I flew approximately 563 miles, and Seattle should be about, well, 211,000 feet or so below the horizon, or about 40 miles, when I'm sitting in Reno. Yeah, I should see a few degrees there, guys. And here were my coordinates sitting on the runway in Seattle after landing, where I took the second and final measurement. So, there you have it. My first two experiments were west to east and east to west, so here is an experiment traveling the alleged globe south to north. But, unfortunately for you globe defenders, that darned elusive curvature was not found again. When is someone going to be able to measure that darn thing, huh?
And that's the real issue, isn't it? There was a video going around a while back with this guy that had an interesting accent. Where's the curvature? If you can't measure curvature, then maybe there isn't one to be measured. There are a lot of people out there, just regular people, getting in boats and using lasers and buying the Nikon Coolpix P900 camera and going out and doing tests for themselves. That's what I've done, and a lot of other people have been doing the same thing. I mean, why do you think there are so many people all around the world all of a sudden becoming flat earthers? Could it be that maybe they're seeing things for themselves? I'm going to suggest that they are, because that's what happened to me.
The credo for many of these believers, check it out for yourself.
Go out and test.
You just want them to ask the questions.
Why do you believe what you believe? And let you go from there. Because I could tell you something, and then you just look at me and say I'm crazy.
A lot of people watching this are going to be like, that man is crazy.
I'm sure they probably do. And I would say, well, they're crazy for not testing what they think they believe.
But in a world of disagreements large and small, for something as clear as this horizon, the interpretation could be infinite. For Nightline, I'm Eva Pilgrim in Cary, North Carolina.
Let's back that up a bit. All right, this image right here. This is of the Galileo space probe, 1990. And this is actually the image, time-lapse video, that began to turn me into a flat earther. Let's look at it again. This is allegedly a 25-hour time-lapse of the Earth as obtained by the Galileo space probe in December of 1990, when the spacecraft was supposedly over 1 million miles away. Now let's compare that with this right here, which is allegedly a time-lapse of the Earth in 4K resolution as imaged by the geostationary Electro-L weather satellite in the spring of 2011. So let's look at them side by side. Notice anything peculiar? I'll have a lot more to say about these images in the Debunking the Number One Reason Why We Allegedly Know the Earth is a Globe video, if and when I ever get the time to complete that video. Suffice it to say, I think you see where I'm going here, just looking at these two videos. Both represent a full day. You have on the left 24 hours of rotation, and on the right you have a full day and night depicted. And the only difference I see here is over 20 years of computer animation advancement in technology. Can't depict moving clouds in 1990, you can in 2011. And I think I'll just go ahead and end this video here. Since this video is already over 2 hours long, it's a lot longer than I initially anticipated, so I will post the raw version of my interview that ABC Nightline did with me as a separate video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it on your favorite social media sites. There's a lot more to come, so stay tuned and we'll see you back next time.